Police officers will be deployed to stand outside nightclubs in a bid to reduce violence against women. The move was unveiled by Metropolitan Police this week as part of a wider plan to tackle the issue of violence against women in London. Now, the move comes after, of course, that devastating case of Sarah Everard, who was stopped by serving Metropolitan Police officer Wayne Cousins in Clapham, who performed a fake arrest on her, claiming that she was breaking COVID lockdown rules. But is this idea of undercover officers actually a good one? Well, joining me now is retired police officer of 31 years and director of Law and Order Foundation, the one and only Norman Brennan. Norman, thank you very much for joining us this evening. It's going to be really interesting to get your views on this particular topic. Undercover police officers outside nightclubs, your views initially?
I can't see it happening. I don't know where we get the officers from. Already, Britain rarely sees a police officer when they're a victim of crime. Traffic division down 27%. We've lost dogs, we've lost helicopters, we've lost horses, and we've lost 22,000 officers. We don't have enough officers to police the streets. Let me just tell you what I think has happened here. Well, I know what has happened here. Is that we've got too many Pied Pipers. We've got a police service that cannot deal with crisis management. The Pied Pipers I'm talking about is that we have heard a number of people, in fact, thousands of women saying how frightened and scared they are on the streets and in nightclubs and pubs. Well, that's always been the case, and it's right that they highlight it. Let me just tell you about the Pied Piper that is not being heard. Over the past year, 180 women have been murdered primarily by a man. 180. 5 of those women have been murdered on the streets of Britain. 175 have been murdered behind their own front door by a current or previous partner. The majority of women that are raped behind their own door by a current partner or a previous partner. Most women that are GBH, controlled, coerced, and broken are all happening behind their front doors. I'm not saying there isn't issues on the streets, but the Pied Piper that's not being listened to, when you think about it, 5 women, and of course Sarah Everard's case has just touched everybody's heart. Sadly, that's been misconstrued and everybody is running around like headless chickens. There's no thinking, there's no planning, there's no executing of any proper thought through plans. It's all knee-jerk reaction. So I'm afraid it won't really work, and it's nothing more than window dressing.
Yeah, I think I'm going to return absolutely some of the very, very, very salient points that you make there, especially about the behind closed doors elements of this. But just for now, just sticking on this hypothetical situation about undercover officers outside nightclubs. I know that you say it won't happen. Let's just assume that it does, right? Actually, how's this going to make women feel safer? Presumably, a visible police presence would make women feel safer.
Well, the average nightclub will have upwards of 1,000, 1,500 people. A busy pub will have upwards of 200 or 300 people jostling around, knocking into each other, couples, friends, hen parties, stag parties. Where the hell are these police officers going to stick into? And not only that, 1 or 2, how many officers are going to be in there? How many eyes and ears are there going to be? And often enough, they will never be able to see what will be happening in front of them. So I honestly don't know, because I've had no part in any of this planning of what they're actually thinking. Pretty much like they want to look at police officers' mobile phones. Well, it's never going to happen. It's a knee-jerk reaction. And what's happening is now the whole country is getting lost with gimmicks and window dressing. What they want is a police service to accept that we have made mistakes. If you can accept responsibility, that's one thing. You then get chief officers of police that stand up and then tell you the good things that we do. We tell the public about the plans. We tell them about how we're going to execute the plans, and we actually start working with the public, because at this moment in time, the gulf between policing, and I've been involved in policing and law and order for 43 years, have never been so far apart. And I don't see us bringing us and the public and victims any closer at all.
No. Now, shortly, I'm going to bring my panel in and they can ask anything that they want. I'd just like one more with you from me, if that's OK. This must really, really grate at you. The idea that you're obviously quite clearly a very stand-up guy. He's very passionate about his profession and very passionate about the industry and presumably very passionate about public safety as a whole. But then you end up with some, let's be honest, absolute wrongers, like Wayne Couzens and these people who are doing pictures with these bodies and stuff like that. And then the response to that from Cressida Dick appears to be to say, well, right, from now on, any undercover police officer is going to have to, if they stop someone, video call someone back at base or something and prove who they are. I mean, this is a devastating situation on a few counts, isn't it? A, undercover police officers now have to change the way they operate. B, you know, it does maybe highlight that some police officers, unfortunately, are wrong-uns. And then also C, it does undermine the trust with the public, because now I know personally a lot of women and a lot of young women especially, who if they got stopped by an undercover police officer would probably be more inclined to run away than address them.
Most women don't get stopped by undercover police officers unless there's an operation. If there's an operation, you've normally got a number of officers. I think the time has come, Pat, is that we cannot keep on using Sarah Everard, the same as Stephen Lawrence, as a baseball bat to beat the police into smithereens. One warning I must give you is this. It's pretty much like a relationship. When you treat your partner dreadfully, you treat her or him abusively, offensively, and you make them feel crap 24 hours of the day, eventually they will leave you.
Yeah.
If you lose the best police service in the world, I'm afraid it won't be until then that you will look back and say, hang on a minute, the police put their hands up. Wayne Couzens was one of them. We can't ignore it. He committed the most appalling of crime. But in the history of the British Police Service, he's the only one that done it. Yes, we've had others that have committed serious crimes, and we within policing want them out. And just to finish off on that point, Patrick, is I've been involved in policing for 43 years. I've met thousands of outstanding men and women, black and white. They get up every day. They put uniform on. They look at the television before they leave. They kiss their family goodbye, not knowing if they're going to return. And they see the maligning they get, the condemning they get from mainstream media. And they're the ones that have to put on their uniforms, get in cars, walk the streets, and go out and pick up the devastation that crime leaves behind. I stand up for the good, honest men, and by golly, they're in the majority.
Yeah, I can absolutely believe that and absolutely understand it. And, you know, you hear about it massively in a big way when a very huge incident goes on. What you don't hear about is the often very down, very dirty work that police officers have to do, the very brave work that police officers have to do. And it's all very well and good. A lot of people in the media sitting here in a position similar to me, banging on and highlighting all of the negatives. Why are you sat here and why are you not putting a uniform on and going out and doing that job? It's probably because you realise this is a much cushier gig and you don't quite fancy it, so we need to have that right. But I'm going to bring in my panel now, though. Political columnist Ali Miraj. We've got also presenter and social commentator Ingrid Tarrant and former Liberal Democrat MP LEMBIT OPIK. This is their opportunity to... I open the floor up, Norman, to them. So who would like to go first? Is anyone going to put their hand up? LEMBIT, you want to go?
Norman, I relate to what you've said there because politicians get the same bad rap. Most people in politics do it for the right reasons, but a small number of politicians seem to lend themselves to media attack. Question for you, Norman. Even though it's a very tiny proportion of police officers who are corrupt and who committed crimes, what do you do about this? I've heard what you've argued. You've argued it powerfully, but what do you do about that small minority which causes the same problem in the police service as the small minority cause a problem for the majority of politicians?
Well, OPIK, until we invent Robocop that never makes a mistake, that sees every firearm, whether it's an imitation one or a live one, that the sweat on the brow of somebody is because of a hot tube rather than a terrorist, you have to rely on men and women that are from the public, because the police are the public are the police. We try to recruit the best people with exemplary records. And I've heard so many times recently about the vetting procedures. Well, the thing is, an officer can be recruited tomorrow with an exemplary record. All his character references stand out. And in 2 or 3 years' time, that person, through drink, drugs, wife, partner has left them, their life changes. They get assaulted or stabbed or shot. They suffer from post-traumatic stress. They change. And when they change, they commit an appalling crime that can never have been predicted when they were recruited. So in answer to your question, we recruit the best people we can at the time. And we, because we're members of the public, sometimes we sometimes do wrong, but the majority of the officers are there to serve the public and do an outstanding job.
All right, Ingrid, have you got anything you'd like to ask Norman?
Yeah, Norman, you say about how much goes on behind closed doors, and the majority of cases reported do. But I will say one thing, and this has been going on for as long as I can remember. Rape cases are traditionally not reported, and that happens on the street as well, and in parts because nothing is done. And women are actually, they come forward to say that they've been raped, and very often, there's very few cases where actually they've cried rape, rape as a regret from the night before. Mostly, it is a genuine rape case, and they're the ones that are actually having to answer a lot of questions because they're suspected, perhaps, of making it up. So I just want to get that out there because I feel really sorry for the women that have actually got to go through that, and I think we need to clarify that. So, if you will please respect that I've said that.
Well, I suppose then if we kind of turn that to Norman and just say, I suppose, do you think that the police do enough to get enough rape convictions? I suppose.
Well, I've dealt with rape cases. I've sat down and watched colleagues deal with rape cases, work all the hours that God sends, regularly keep in touch with the victims. You're talking about a handful of victims that sadly we have found. You never hear again, like I said at the beginning of the programme, the many tens of thousands of women that we haven't found that thank us.
Sorry,
sadly,
Norman,
there are a number of women.
Can I interject that? I have to disagree because you say that, but I bet there's a lot of women out there that are saying, no, it's the other way around, because so many go unreported. You're talking about the ones that people have reported, but why are so many more not getting reported? Because they're not being treated correctly. They give up. There's no point.
Do you think there should be more? I don't know how to phrase this. Should there be more?
Look,
Norman, is that whose fault's that? Is that the police's fault, really?
Look, what you've got to remember is who do you think you're speaking to at the moment? I was a police officer for 31 years. I am a leading law and order campaigner representing the police, the public and victims. If I feel that any of them let down, and many of you don't even know of me, I've been doing this 32 years. I represent victims of crime, the police and the public. And the reason I say that is when I see something going wrong, I'll say it. I'm telling you now that I've dealt with rape cases and many others. You're absolutely right. We put often the best possible case before a court. It's the juries that don't convict. And the sad reality is with women, and I've sat down and pleaded with them that have never reported it to the police. Let me get involved. Let me report it. They say, Norman, I just don't want to do it. I can't go through that. There are a huge number of women where we've got the evidence. They've reported it. We've done all the inquiries, CCTV, the first victim complaint statement that we get when we first meet them. And many of them do not want to give evidence.
Okay.
Are we doing enough? We're doing the best we can. I promise you we are. If we weren't, I wouldn't be standing in front of you now defending the police.
All right, good stuff. Just very quickly, sorry, just really quickly. So I just want to bring Ali in. We've got about a minute and a half left on this. I'm very sorry about this, but Ali, go on. If you've got anything for Norman.
Norman, I'd just like to ask if you've got confidence in the Met Police Commissioner Cressida Dick.
Good shout.
I have. There are not many other people that can replace her at the moment. She's gone through hell. I know her personally. We locked horns on a number of issues when we were serving officers, and I was a serving officer. I didn't join the bandwagon to get her kicked out. She actually is an exemplary person. Certain sections of the mainstream media, just like the police, have really had it in for her and want her out. Why don't we just leave her alone? Why don't we let her get on with the job? And why don't the mainstream media, for once, get behind the best police service in the world? Because sadly, the mainstream media are part of the problem and not the solution. And the more you malign the police and make them feel crap, the more they're going to want to leave and nobody's going to want to join. Who's going to protect society then?
OK. Well, I tell you what, it's a controversial point to leave it on, but that's what this is all about, I suppose. It's good to have a range of views. Norman, thank you very, very much. Norman Brennan there.